Welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most unbelievable true stories in modern science. It's the story of how one man's engineering solutions accidentally triggered two of the worst environmental disasters in human history, and the lone obsessive scientist who managed to expose it all. It is a wild tale of unintended consequences, corporate greed, and the uncompromising search for truth.
800 million. That's a massive number, right? Well, that is the estimated number of IQ points literally stolen from people born globally between 1951 and 1980. And the craziest part? It was all because of a single chemical added to our everyday lives. To understand how we let a potent neurotoxin just silently rob human intelligence on such an incredibly massive scale, we have to trace the origin of this disaster.
Act 1. A toxic solution for cars. So picture the early 1900s. We've got these newly invented self-starting car engines, which were a total game changer. I mean, before this, you had to hand crank a car, which was notoriously dangerous. It could literally break your arm or your jaw if the crank kicked back. Self-starters solved that, but they had a serious mechanical hurdle. High-compression engines, like the ones in the Cadillac Model 30, suffered from this deafening, knocking sound. The fuel-air mixture was getting compressed so much it would spontaneously combust before the spark plug even fired, causing these violent pressure waves that just trashed the engine cylinders. They needed a fix, fast. Enter a brilliant 27-year-old engineer named Thomas Midgley Jr., who was hired to find a fuel additive to solve the problem.
Midgley tried absolutely everything. Melted butter, camphor, he even tried tellurium, which actually worked, but it smelled so unimaginably horrific his wife made him sleep in the basement. He ended up going with a chemical called tetraethyl lead. For the executives, it was the perfect corporate solution. It was ridiculously cheap, completely odorless, and you only needed one tiny part per thousand for it to work perfectly. Most importantly, they could patent it. This single discovery was poised to make his corporate backers billions of dollars in today's money.
Now here's the wild part. The extreme dangers of lead. They weren't exactly a new discovery. At all. Actually, Benjamin Franklin was complaining about this exact malicious poison almost 150 years earlier. The medical community completely understood that lead was highly toxic. But suddenly, the master plan was to pump it directly into the fuel of millions of consumer vehicles.
Unsurprisingly, public health officials and doctors from places like Harvard, Yale, and MIT were waving massive red flags, begging them not to put lead into gasoline. They called it a creeping and malicious poison. But even after 5 workers died from severe lead poisoning at a brand new chemical plant, corporate leadership completely brushed off the hazards. To them, this highly profitable chemical was, and I quote, a gift from heaven.
So factory workers start dying, the public is getting nervous, and it's turning into a massive PR nightmare. To do damage control, Midgley pulls off this insanely brazen stunt for the press. He literally pours tetraethyl lead all over his hands and sniffs the fumes for a solid minute, swearing to reporters he could do it every single day without any harm. But he was lying through his teeth. He knew full well that lead mimics calcium, stores securely in your bones for years, and severely damages your brain's myelin sheath. The reality? He had just spent the better part of the previous years secretly recovering from severe lead poisoning himself.
Act 2. The Clean Room and the Earth. Fast forward a few decades. Millions of cars globally are now burning leaded gas, pumping toxic dust directly into the air. Enter a young Caltech scientist in 1952 named Claire Patterson. Now, Patterson wasn't looking for a corporate cover-up. He was just a guy trying to figure out the exact age of the Earth. He was using this incredibly precise method of tracking the radioactive decay of uranium into lead inside ancient meteorites. But his project hit a massive wall. His pristine primordial rock samples were constantly being contaminated with these massive, unexplained amounts of background lead just floating around his laboratory.
To solve this maddening contamination issue, Patterson basically invents the modern ultra-clean lab environment. I'm talking extreme measures here. He literally rips the electrical wiring right out of the walls just to get rid of the microscopic lead solder. He's scrubbing the floors and benches with ammonia every single day and forcing everyone to wear these specialized plastic bunny suits. He was doing everything humanly possible to isolate his ancient samples from the surprisingly dirty outside world.
And you know what? All that obsessive scrubbing paid off. He succeeded. Patterson proved the Earth was 4.55 billion years old, which was a full billion years older than anyone previously thought. It was a monumental, historic triumph for science. But the mystery of the environmental lead just kept gnawing at him. Why was there so much toxic dust everywhere he looked?
Act 3.
tracking a global poison.
The corporations making leaded gasoline kept confidently insisting, hey, lead is natural, it's everywhere, completely harmless. Well, Patterson wasn't buying it. He decides to test ocean water to see for himself. Think about it, if lead was naturally occurring over millions of years, it should be distributed evenly throughout the ocean depths. Instead, Patterson found that lead concentrations were nearly 10 times higher right at the ocean's surface compared to 4 kilometers deep. That definitively proved this massive contamination had to be a very recent, human-caused phenomenon. From there, he goes to the absolute extremes, traveling to Greenland and Antarctica, drilling deep, deep down into the ice. Because these ice cores act like a massive historical archive of the atmosphere, he was able to map out human air pollution over thousands of years. And the data was undeniable. You see a fairly flat baseline, a tiny dip during the Black Death when mining stopped, and then boom, a massive, totally unprecedented spike, shooting straight up in the 20th century. He had the smoking gun linking the pollution directly to industrialization and leaded gas.
Act 4. The devastating human toll.
So Patterson had successfully cracked the environmental mystery, but figuring out the biological damage of all that airborne lead, that was terrifying. He tested the bones and teeth of modern, recently deceased Americans and compared them to 1,600-year-old Peruvian and Egyptian mummies. The modern skeletons didn't just have a little more lead. They had a staggering 1,000 times more lead in them than their ancestors. 1,000 times. Here's the really crucial takeaway. There is no safe level of lead. Zero. Even trace amounts severely disrupt human neurotransmitters. It is now believed to be responsible for nearly 2/3 of all unexplained intellectual disabilities globally, which is exactly where those 800 million lost IQ points come in. Plus, it silently drives a massive amount of fatal cardiovascular disease by hardening your arteries. We're talking about an estimated 25 million historical heart disease deaths in the US alone. And there is an even darker correlation hidden in the data that is just chilling. Across multiple countries globally, if you track the exact moment leaded gas is phased in and you jump forward exactly 20 years, you see a massive epidemic of violent crime. Millions of kids grew up with neurological damage and chemically impaired behavioral control. So when they hit early adulthood, crime rates skyrocketed, only to suddenly plummet a few decades after leaded gas was finally phased out.
Act 5. The second disaster. CFCs.
Okay, so just when you think Thomas Midgley Jr.'s story couldn't possibly get any more destructive, we uncover his second big corporate project. Back in the 1920s, household refrigerators used toxic or highly flammable gases. It was a massive safety hazard. So General Motors tasks Midgley with creating a safe alternative. In 1928, he whips up a highly stable, seemingly miraculous chemical compound called dichloro-difluoromethane. Branded as Freon, this was the absolute birth of CFCs, which quickly dominated global refrigeration, aerosols, and solvents.
But there was a massive, fatal flaw. Because CFCs are so incredibly stable, they don't break down near the ground. Instead, they just drift all the way up into the stratosphere. And once they're up there, intense ultraviolet light finally smashes them apart, releasing a highly reactive chlorine atom. That single chlorine atom triggers a violent chain reaction that literally chewed a hole in the Earth's protective ozone layer, threatening the entire planet with deadly UV radiation.
Historian John McNeill really hit the nail on the head when summing up this dark irony. He noted that Midgley had more impact on the atmosphere than any other single organism in Earth's history. Midgley literally invented two separate miracles of science, leaded gas and CFCs, that both mutated into unprecedented existential threats to human intelligence, our climate, and our atmosphere. And by the way, CFCs are also potent greenhouse gases, causing 10,000 times more warming per kilogram than CO2.
The story of these two vastly different men ends in really striking ways. In a crazy twist of tragic irony, Midgley, after contracting polio, invented a complex mechanical bed with pulleys to help lift himself up. But at age 51, he got tangled in its ropes and was accidentally strangled by his own invention. Meanwhile, Claire Patterson's relentless, almost obsessive detective work forced global governments to officially ban leaded fuel and CFCs. Those bans are currently saving over 1 million human lives every single year.
It's a profound reminder of the massive ripple effects of human innovation and the power of one person seeking the truth. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. In our current age of breakneck technological progress, what new gifts from heaven are we blindly adopting right now? What everyday miracles are just waiting for a future Claire Patterson to inevitably expose? Thank you for joining me, and as always, keep questioning the science around you.